Hello everyone, welcome to the video. In today's video we will be installing the Draco front and rear Truggy shock towers. So you will receive the shock towers like this. They are pre-assembled with the custom M4 shock standoffs installed in this location, but this is not a final recommendation. So when you receive them, when you install them, I recommend setting up the shocks how you see fit. Okay, so everything will change because some of the mounting holes are slightly different to stock, and there are more of them as well. Some additional features of these towers are the extra holes to mount the optional Draco Truggy tower braces. So this will add extra rigidity to your Truggy and are available separately. We also have an extra hole to raise the body mounts up one, or about 5 millimeters. This is just to clear the top of the shock towers in the front. The stock body will make contact here if you mount it in a stock position, which is the lower position. For example, like this. But if you move it up one, which I recommend doing, you will clear the shock tower and just raises the body a little bit, but it's not noticeable. Okay, and then we have the stock parts up the top here, so please reuse the 3x12 millimeter screws to mount the shock tower to the bulkhead for both towers. Please reuse the same screws to mount the bumper to the front shock tower like so, and then of course the screws to mount the body mounts, hardware for the wing mount, and that mounts in the same location as before. And then you will have these 3x22 millimeter cap head screws. Because of the extra thickness of the towers, the stock 3x20 button screws are not long enough, so I've provided these longer ones, but please reuse the M3 nuts here. Okay, so they are the parts you will receive and the parts you will reuse. Let's get into installing them into the Truggy. Okay, so we are going to start with the front Truggy shock tower, and before we install in the vehicle we need to attach some of these plastic parts. So first of all, let's attach the I guess bumper mount. So this will go into the center hole, this boss here, and then you will add two 3x12 millimeter button screws to tighten it down. So 2 millimeter wrench, like so. Here we go. So that's installed. And then next we're going to install the front body mount. So make sure again that you have the right ones. They have the angle like this because the front is angled about 10 or 20 degrees. I forget which one. And we have two mounting spots, so the screw will go into the center hole. This will be the correct mounting position, so the body will clear the top of the Truggy towers. The bottom one is the stock position. I have had to raise it so everything clears the towers. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so they are all the plastic pieces added, the body mounts and the bumper mount. Now it's ready to be installed into the Truggy. So let's go ahead, get my Truggy up here, and we will install. Okay, so we have our HPI Racing Vorza S Flux Truggy in front of us, and we we have the stock shock towers removed, and we are going to install the front first. So like before, I've added all the plastic parts and the bumper, and we can just place this on here like so, and now the bumper will hold it in place. So it's very important that you put this plastic piece on first, because it's a little difficult to access the screws from behind here once it's on the vehicle. So we get these 3x12mm screws that you took out from your previous shock tower, and let's reuse these. So put these 4 into the bulkhead and it will be attached to the vehicle. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so I've installed the front shock tower onto the bulkhead with those 4 screws, so it's mounted. Finally, we need to put these 3x18mm flathead screws into the bumper mount here. So yeah, when you take off the stock shock tower, please remove the screws from here first, then from here, and then remove as one piece. It's much easier to install later, like I have. Then we will tighten these down. Okay, and the second one, 2mm wrench or driver. There we go. Okay, so that's installed. It's fixed to the vehicle. Next, we are going to put in the upper arms. So let me install these and we'll come back and take a look. Okay, so I've gone ahead and installed the upper arms. Let's take a look. So you can see I've mounted them in the top row in the center, and the reason for this is because this is the closest position to stock, or as the vehicle comes. So I recommend this as a starting point, but you still may need to adjust your turnbuckles and your other suspension geometry to set it up how you like it. So just a starting point, and of course feel free to move these standoffs around however you like. Alright, so let's get into looking at the shocks. Alright, so I didn't mention in the beginning of this video, but you will also receive these 4 washers with your shock towers. So if you mount your standoff in the top 3 holes of the shock towers, I recommend using this washer. It will go on before the shock, so mount it on there and then put the shock on like that. This is just to increase the distance between the shock cap and the shock tower. If you mount in these top 3 positions here, this ridge of the shock cap is very close to the shock tower. So using this spacer will increase the distance and there won't be any damage. But if you use any other positions on the tower, you will not need these washers, so you can keep them aside as spare. Okay, so I've already made a run of these parts, so any iterations would have to be made in the next run. So I will increase the distance of this next time, and it won't be a problem in the second run. Alright, so moving on now to installing the shocks. So because I've mounted in the lower positions, I don't need those washers, so I can just put these on straight away and then add the M4 flanged nut just like that, and then you need a 7mm wrench to tighten these, just like that. Just firm is good. The plastic bushing will hold it in place against the tower, against the standoff, sorry. There we go. So they are installed. Once again, please make adjustments as you see fit. Everyone has a different setup, so my towers arrive just as a standard setup, so you will have to play around and find your ideal settings. Okay, so that is the front shock tower. Let's move on to the rear shock tower. Okay, moving on to the rear shock tower. So like the front, let's install some of the plastic parts onto the tower before installing into the vehicle. So let's start with the body mounts. So like the front also, we have the same number of positions, 2, and you want to mount into the upper position. So the boss will go into the top hole, and then the screw will go into the second hole, just like that. Then tighten. And the second one, top and second. There we go. They are installed. Next, let's install the wing mount. So take that off. I'll have to switch out to the 2.5. And then take off the nuts. Okay, so you can see the pockets here. Please mount to this side with the logo facing out. So there we go. And then I will screw in the top screws first. And you can tighten it. There we go. Doesn't have to be too tight. Then you can maybe start this. Okay, so I'll get the 5.5mm wrench and then tighten. Right, and same on the other side. Okay, that's installed. So the wing mount and the body mounts are ready to go. So let's bring the Truggy back up here and install into the vehicle. Okay, so let's get the rear shock tower with the plastic parts installed, and then we'll place it onto the bulkhead, and then reusing the 3x12mm button screws that that held in the previous shock tower, you will install. So let me install those, and we'll come back and take a look at the next step. Alright, so I've gone ahead and installed the shock tower on the bulkhead, and I've also attached the upper arms to the shock tower as well. So let's take a look at those positions. Right, so you can see I have mounted on the outer row in the center. Once again, this is the position closest to the stock position, but again you will still need to make adjustments to fine-tune everything because things will have changed. And yeah, the 3x22mm screws like the front and rear would be used here. They are slightly longer due to the extra thickness to the shock tower. Okay, so now let's put on the shocks. Like the front shock tower, if you plan to mount to the top 3 holes, I recommend using these washers on the standoffs before mounting the shock, just like this. Put it on, hold it, and then pin it against. This will give distance between the cap and the tower and prevent damage. But if you mount in the lower positions, you will not need to use these. So like me, I'm going to use the stock position or as the towers arrive, and then mount the shock, screw on the M4 screw. Okay, just like so. And you will need a 7mm nut wrench to tighten these. And 2. Alright, So that completes installation. So I also have another video on installing the shock towers into the Buggy. They are different shock towers designed for the Buggy. So yeah, we have 2 sets available, or I have 2 sets available. And also you can see the front and rear chassis braces. I have an installation video on this. The installation is the same between the Buggy and the Truggy Flux, so please check that out, as well as the Buggy installation video. And then I also have a video on installing the Draco motor mount into your Buggy or Truggy Flux. There'll be a link in the description for all videos relating to these products. And then finally, I have a separate video on how to install the Truggy tower braces. They are an optional brace that you can purchase separately for the Truggy only. It only works with the Flux. So yeah, check out that video where I show you how to install these. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video.